All right, are we ready? We will call the Griffin Spalding County Board of Education meeting 4/19/2024 to order. And I would entertain a motion for the adoption of the agenda.
So move.
I have a motion.
Second.
I have a second by Ms. Barbara Joe. All in favor signify by raising your right hand. Be 5-0. Our action items, the superintendent's recommendations. Dr. Simmons?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Board members, Mr. Chair, it is the superintendent's recommendation that we appoint Mr. Larry Davis, the next head football coach for Spalding High School. Mr. Larry, also known as Nick Davis.
All right, board members?
So move.
I have a motion
Second.
and a second. Any discussion? All in favor signify by raising your right hand. Be 5-0.
Okay, once again, Mr. Chair, board members, it is the superintendent's recommendation that the next principal for Griffin High School is Mrs. Naja Douglas. Again, Griffin High School Principal 2425, Mrs. Naja Douglas.
What is the pleasure of this board?
So move.
I have a motion and I have a second. Any discussion? All right. Ms. McDonald?
Ross.
This vote today, which will likely be 3-2, will not be what's best for the most, what's best for students, or what's best for employees. During the interview process for the current superintendent position, we had a candidate say, "I will always do what is best for the most." I remember making eye contact with Mr. Brown and giving him a thumbs up. It was a moment in time I'll never forget. I'm attempting to do that today. During this process, I have been contacted by more than 25 employees via email and/or text messages and local citizens who have a vested interest in Griffin High School. These messages did not say just vote no. These messages included supporting reasons which included depth, clarity, and heart. First, I wanted to thank each of you for contacting me and reaching out. Not one employee or citizen who has reached out to me supports this recommendation for Ms. Douglas. Not one. I even heard from a grandmother based upon her experiences at Carver Road. Her grandchildren ended up at AZK and she was thankful as they are flourishing currently. As a former educator myself, when students came to me and shared a concern, I listened. When several came to me with the same concern, I knew then there was an issue I needed to address and take action. This today is no different. When over 1/3 or so of the employees at one school contact a board member, there truly is a reason to listen. Some on this board are listening, sadly some are not. I do not understand and will never understand ignoring employees and stakeholders. I did ask the superintendent to reopen this search for this position. This ask was denied. As a board, we have one chance to get it right for the people we represent: teachers, parents, kids, and employees. Voting yes for this current recommendation is not what is best for the most and does not represent what is best for those I serve, for those we serve. For all of the employees of this organization, please know I will continue to put you first, always. I will continue to represent you and your concerns, always. I will continue to represent you with pride, always. I appreciate each and every one of you and the roles in which you serve this organization daily. I do not support the recommendation. Thank you.
Any other discussion?
Yes, sir. Mr. Doss.
Mr. Brown?
The happiness, the memories are minutes flying by. On January the 18th of 2024, rapper born as Devontae McCreary, also known as Bossman D-Lo, released the hit single, Get In With Me. For those who do not like trap music, you may be able to stand it because the song is only 2 minutes long. In this song, Bossman D-Lo paints a picture for the people, He paints a picture that he is the only one who needs to be in this car while he is driving. I told you earlier that the name of the song is called Get In With Me. Now, his lyrics, y'all, are so hard. Me as a millennial, every time I hear this song, I get so amped, I get so crunk. He says, you want to boss up your life? All you got to do is get in with me. I don't even pay to get in the club. They know I'm a walking ticket. I'm presidential leaving the club. We ain't stopping at no lights. You want to be a boss? You got to pay the price. Left wrist on frost like a bag of ice. I'm driving the Bentley Bottega like I don't love my life. So now you see that boss man D-Lo should be the only one in that vehicle. Like days will be the golden years we spent at Griffin High. Throughout this process, I have received nearly a dozen phone calls, 13 emails, and nearly 20 plus text messages regarding the principal appointment for my beloved alma mater, Griffin High School. To those stakeholders, teachers, thank you so much for your input. As a former educator, I say thank you again for speaking up and making your voices heard so loud and so very clear. For we know that the Board of Education, that these are serious issues, and today we are able to make them known, so in the future, we can at least see some professional, educational progress and maturity from this particular appointee. In the phone conversation with Dr. Simmons when he called me to let me know of his appointment, I made it known to him at that point in time that I would not be able to support the appointment of Ms. Nadja Douglas. We talked at length. It was a great conversation. And at the end of that conversation, I thought that I was going to be able to get some data, some stats, but that has not happened. Yesterday in a conversation with the superintendent, he shared with me that he did not send it to me because I told him that I could not support the appointment, so he said there was no reason to even send it. So I never received the data. And this is another reason why my vote is further supported by a no. The lyrics of Griffin High School alma mater also says, we won't forget when we grow up, but then we'll have grown apart. One of the calls I got from a veteran educator said that they've had 6 principals in X amount of time and that they needed stability. They talked about how the school is not better than when the current principal got there. And so their plea to me was to make sure that we're able to stand up for what they want. Many educators have raised these grave concerns, the lack of teacher support, and we know that this is a significant challenge for school leaders to address all across the country. Teacher turnover, where there have been so many teachers at one school with Ms. Douglas as their leader that has left for several different reasons, and those reasons are listed on their exit survey that HR does. And then not having a grasp on discipline in the building. These are to name a few, and there are others. And we know that these challenges have a significant impact on our scholars, our faculty, our staff, and overall it affects the climate and culture that we are striving so hard, and I say again, that we are striving so hard to change here in Griffin Spalding County Schools. Now I know some of you may not even be listening, you may not even care what these words are, but I just want to tell you, you can't squeeze water out of a rock. And Griffin High School is where Bone Thugs and Harmony said, where they wanted the folks to meet them at the crossroads. When days here are over, our bright new worlds will dawn, and these will always cherish as we travel on. So folks, today we understand that navigating these challenges will require strong leadership, adaptability, and the willingness to learn and grow in a new role. So I believe that this appointment will pass today, but I want to make a motion. Once we approve this, there are 3 things that I want the board to direct the superintendent to do. The first thing is to find Ms. Douglas a seasoned and supportive mentor who is experienced in high school. And that person should, if they are retired, should not been retired less than 3 years, or they are a sitting principal. The next thing is to provide the Board of Education with a detailed professional development plan that will facilitate a smooth transition from middle school to high school for Ms. Douglas. And the third thing that I asked the superintendent to direct his folks to do is to detail a professional development plan of trainings that would help with, because as principal of Griffin High School, or of a high school, there are a lot of different entities and things that happen. And so from past experiences, we know that there is some coaching as it relates to the athletic rules. And so we want to make sure that Ms. Douglas is able to have a detailed training plan and development process, not only that will be cultivated here at the district level with our district athletic coordinator and the athletic director at Griffin High School, and any other support that Georgia High School Athletic Association can provide. Mr. Chairman and colleagues, I yield the balance of my time, and that is a strong, hard no. Thank you.
Any other board members have anything as far as discussion?
Mr. Dawes, I want to take, full advantage of this opportunity, and I want to make my comments based on the process. And what I mean by the process is, I know there's some feelings one way or the other. There's some opinions one way or the other. But I want to make my comment based on the process that we have in place that should be adhered to by all school board members of the state of Georgia throughout this state. And that is, first of all, we're not involved in the process of looking at candidates' backgrounds. We're not involved in the process of whether they qualify and meet the needs. We're not involved in the process of even sitting down to interview any candidate. We're not involved in the personnel issues. And I say that in prelude to what I'm about to say. And I've always told every superintendent that has sat in that seat and that I've worked with that if I'm not involved as a board member in that process, we have to trust that superintendent in the recommendation that they send to the board. We have no knowledge. We have nothing to go by, only phone calls of people's opinion, because we should base everything on performance, and that performance is documented in the form of evaluations. And that's, our superintendent has access to all of that. So any concerns can be validated or whether or not they can be eliminated. So I depend on the superintendent and the process that we have as board members, which has been restated. We have a process of dealing with everything through the superintendent. We only hire and fire one person. We only supervise one person. I know the average person don't understand that. I know probably the average staff person don't understand that. But we are overstepping our boundaries when we get involved in personnel issues and the decisions made on personnel. So I say that we need to stick with the process that we have been handed. It may not be fair or we may not like it. I personally don't like it. I would love to be involved and know more about people that we have to vote on. But guess what? The process is we have to trust the superintendent. And if the superintendent is not making good decisions, good recommendation, we have one or two ways to deal with that: through evaluations, or we can vote him in or her, vote them in or vote them out. If we don't like the way they're doing their job, that includes Dr. Simmons, we vote them out. If we like what they're doing, we keep them. But we have to respect and we have to trust our superintendent, because he should be held accountable for any staff that is not living up to expectation, job performance, and job description. I'm going to stand on what I have stood on for over 20 plus years. I've never gone against a superintendent's recommendation for a position. I've only known of one occasion where the superintendent, not the board, pulled a person's name from a recommendation, never the board. I will continue to support the superintendent because that's what we are supposed to do as board members. We are not to overreach and try to handle personnel issues. We have a process going down for us, and there's a process going up at the staff level. We need to utilize that. I'll state that again. If we don't utilize it, if we don't encourage it, we're going to continue to have discourse in our organization. You look at the numbers that has been stated. I didn't state any numbers, but you look at the number that have been stated, it's a minute number compared to the totality of employees. It's a minute number. We cannot make decisions based on a minute number. Even Jesus couldn't please everybody. So I will firmly continue to support the superintendent, whoever he or she may be, because I don't have the information to make any other decision, because the way the process is set up, the way it goes, we have to trust the superintendent, and I'm going to continue to trust the recommendation and the suggestions of the superintendent unless we see fit to vote him or her out. Otherwise, I'm going to support the superintendent. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Rebuttal.
Oh, excuse me, you're not recognized yet.
Okay, and
Ms.
I said
Bar-
rebuttal. So I'm so that you can recognize me. That's like if I did a point of order.
Right, we're moving
You then
on.
would have to stop to recognize whether.
You have already yielded
So I'm doing
your
a
time.
point of order, sir.
You have already
You're not
yielded
cutting me
your
off.
time.
It's my time.
It
I
is
am doing
not.
a point of order. You can bang that gavel
Mr.
all
Brown,
you want to. We're going to
you
do
are
this
out
in
of order.
civility, and I'm going to say this. I'm going to finish my statement, and once I finish, then you can determine as the chair how you're going to rule. But you are going to listen to what I'm saying. So my point of order is to respond to Mr. Holmes' statement.
No, sir.
I'm sorry?
I said, no, sir, you are not recognized.
Okay, well, that's all you had to say then, but you're going to let me finish. Go ahead.
Ms. Barber-Joe? Your mic is not on. One more time.
You hear me now? Superintendent's question.
Mr. Superintendent, do you?
So, yes, sir. Thank you, Mr. Chair. Members of the board, I too would like to thank the one employee who reached out to me to share feedback about this recommendation. I would like to thank the board members who acknowledge their norms and protocols by directing those who may have reached out to you to afford me the chance to hear from them directly. I regret that so many of our employees are more comfortable speaking to those who are not, quote unquote, on the front line with them, and maybe that's because it's perceived that I am not on the front line with them. But I do recall, as a member of this governance team, only one of us having experience in the position that's being recommended. And I'll ask that you respectfully be reminded, sometimes you don't know what you don't know. Sometimes you know what you don't know. But when you don't know what you don't know, and you teach or preach what you don't know, you exponentially expound upon ignorance. And I don't intend for you to take that term disrespectfully, but by definition, it is when you don't know. As it relates to the suggested detailed plan that could be directed for me to provide for this recommendation should it pass, I would ask, has there been consideration given to the fact that there was no suggested detailed plan directed or suggested for the person that I recently recommended who has zero experience as a principal? I would ask, was there consideration for this person to receive a detailed plan the last time that I recommended a principal with zero experience or enabled them the opportunity to transfer? I think what I've observed, board members, today, at the risk of my own employment in this school system, I think I owe it to you to share with you my disappointment. But I do understand your position, and I understand your convictions. But I want you to understand that there are people who are listening that you're going to depend on to do the work of educating children. And for it to be stated in this order for the last 3.5 years that I've been here, that at least one of our board members supports teachers, parents, kids, and employees, is a contradiction of the mission of the school system, which reads that we're empowering each student to graduate college and career. I will not get into the professional conversation that we should be having to give people the impression that I am trying to divide or fray the fabric of this governance team. What I will offer, when it's all said and done, I'll say to you publicly, as I've said to you privately, we have a process. We included only experienced principals in this particular process. I made the recommendation based upon the performance in the interview, based upon the conversations that we had with students, based upon the conversations we've had with adults. To suggest that a principal that you all gave a 5-0 vote to remain in the role of principal a month ago is now borderline incapable of doing the work at a different school in this district is concerning. I'll apologize to our employees, if not on your behalf, only on mine. We're better than this. It's disappointing. It's disappointing. But I think it shows your level of commitment. My question, if this is the group that's expected to lead this organization, based upon the last 25 minutes, which direction do you believe it's going? It's not about this recommendation. It's about our ability to lead this organization. And what I will offer as the superintendent, whether it be for another 3 years, 3 days, or 3 hours, we're better than this. And what we've demonstrated this afternoon is disappointing to me. So, to the nearly 1,500 employees, I apologize, because this is not the type of discourse that I would expect for you to have. The comments that have been made, at least from my perspective, to suggest that I am here to cause harm or do wrong or not consider what's good for the most is disappointing. And if I'm completely honest, it's disrespectful. If there were to be a tally on the years of experience in education, there would be some who've served as long as I have. But when it comes to the levels of experience, I stand alone in that regard. I'm the only one with experience to lead a school district. I'm the only one with experience to principal a school. I'm the only one with experience to serve as a central office administrator. And for me to have to state that publicly as a reminder is disappointing. And so while I respect your opinions, Mr. Brown, Mrs. McDonald, Mrs. Cook, Mr. Doss, Mr. Holmes, I expect better. And maybe I'm wrong, and I'll accept that. But that's what being accountable is about. Sometimes it's not good enough to walk the talk. Sometimes you have to talk the walk. We have a process. It was executed. I made a recommendation based on what I believe to be the needs of the school. And while I applaud the 13 employees who contacted you, Mr. Brown, I question why they didn't contact me. I question why you didn't direct them to me. While I applaud the 23 or 30 or however many that contacted you, Ms. McDonald, I question why they didn't contact me or why you didn't redirect them to me. And until we overcome that distrust or absence of trust, these conversations will persist. And what's not fair is for the children who must attend that school because of their residence to be left waiting to get the quality of education that not only they deserve, but we're capable of providing. That is what I stand on. I was one of those students. And the last month, what we've done is ask them to wait while we go through what we deem to be our business. Yet we profess that we are doing business on their behalf. So I'm going to stop now.
Thank you. We have a motion and we
Go
have
back
a
to that. I
second.
still would like to do I would like to add a motion to the floor.
Mr. Brown, at this time, you are not
Sir,
recognized.
I can still add a motion. You
Not
have
in
to
the
hear
middle. We are in the middle of a vote. You are not allowed.
I can add a motion.
Not if I don't allow it.
You guys have to take action on the motion that's on the table.
All right. So after the motion is on the table, I will add another motion. That's fine.
So we have a first and a second. All in favor signify by raising your right hand. 3. Those opposed? 2.
So I would like to make a motion to direct the superintendent to find a seasoned and supportive mentor who is experienced in high school, secondary education, who could be retired no less than 3 years, or a sitting principal. I'd like to make that motion on the floor.
We have a motion. Is there a second? Hearing none. He just made a motion. Can you make your motion
Sure.
again?
So, Ms. McDonald, I just made a motion. So in my remarks, I asked for 3 things to happen after the vote was taken to support Ms. Douglas in her role as principal. So the first thing I am making a motion to is for the superintendent to find a seasoned and supportive mentor, someone who is experienced in secondary education, high school, that if they are retired, they have not been retired no more than 3 years, or they can be a sitting principal. That was my first motion.
You're doing individual motions, or you're
I'm
making a motion?
gonna do 2 more, sir.
May I ask a question? The question is pertaining to what you're doing.
Is, with regard to what Mr. Brown just said, Dr. Simmons, is that the norm anyway?
Not only is the norm, ma'am, we do those things for teachers.
Right.
We do those things for all employees the best we know how.
So I guess my question is, why would we need a motion, Mr. Brown? if that is done anyway.
Well, I'm asking for a motion so that it's a part of the record and that to know that it's done. And so as a part of the governance team.
Before discussion, there has to either be a second or the motion fails.
Okay.
So there's a motion on the floor. Hearing no second, the motion will fail.
Motion fails. All right. I would like to make another motion.
Yes, sir?
All right, the second motion is to have a detailed professional development plan to facilitate a smooth transition.
We have a motion.
May I ask a question?
You may.
Dr. Simmons, is this also part of the transition from one school to another? I mean, there's no way that I would know. I mean,
For context, if I may, Ms. McDonald, Mr. Chair. So what wasn't stated about Ms. Douglas or any of the other principals that I've recommended to you, that was stated to you in my application, it's about demonstrated competence. As I've stated to you before you became board members, you had no experience as a board member, but you demonstrated the competence to be on a team, govern and lead, and to suggest that we would put someone in front of a school, other aspiring leaders, teachers, and most importantly, children, without the competence to do the job that I've recommended them to do is borderline disrespectful. And it may be because I don't understand the context. But I'm sharing with you, board, there are people watching and listening. And I need for you to understand the things that you say have an impact. It creates experiences, and those lead to beliefs, and those lead to actions, and that gives you the results.
If I can interrupt for just a moment, I think that you've answered the question to Ms. McDonald, that you are providing that?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So with that, there is a motion on the floor.
So can I ask a question? This is still part of discussion to the superintendent.
Well, the question was clarifying what your motion was about.
Okay.
So are you trying to clarify what your motion is about? Because right now you have a motion on the floor.
Right.
And I need to find out if there's a second for us to continue. Hearing none, the motion will fail.
All right. And I have a third motion.
Yes, sir, go ahead.
All right, so the third one is to provide the Board of Education with a detailed plan associated to assist with the GSCS District Athletic Coordinator, current Athletic Director at Griffin High School, and any other opportunities for growth through Georgia High School Athletic Association, just to be able to understand the many different roles and things that happen. If this, in fact, is something that is going to happen, if it's going to happen, why was it not told to us before now, if it is something that's happening? And maybe this third one may be a little far-reaching or stretching, but I think that it is needed for me as a member of this governance team.
So am I understanding that you want to ask the question of the superintendent before you make the motion?
No, I just made the motion.
You make the motion and you're asking the superintendent the question?
Then I'm asking the question, will this be followed through? Obviously, the first two are already done, so is the third one going to be done as well?
So members of the board, I don't intend to give the impression that every principal in this school system will receive the supports that he or she needs to serve and be successful. But to ask me about a professional development plan regarding athletics, when we profess that reading, writing, speaking, and solving is our top priority, is concerning. we have a district athletic director. The school has a school-level athletic director. But if I'm honest, that is not the need of the leader of the school in this season. The need of the leader in the school this season is to have experience at leading a school, have experience at leading through uncertain circumstances, having experience at leading with organizational structure. The least of these will be supported relative to extra and co-curricular activities. But for that to be stated at this point, under these circumstances, is concerning, because it's never been stated before about any principal, whether they were transferred or brought in from another place, with or without experience. And so what might you be really saying that you haven't said? And that's not for you to answer, that's just for you to consider, because you're not the only one listening. And I'll say it again. I'll be whatever this principal and every other principal under my administration needs me to be. But I don't need to be directed to do it.
Thank you, sir. All right, well, there is a motion on the floor. Is there a second? Hearing none, the motion will fail. Board members, we are at item number 4, which is adjournment. I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. All in favor signify by raising your right hand. That'll be 5-0. Board members, we have a couple of dates also that we need to discuss and make sure that we're on the same page with before you leave today.